President, I rise in strong, passionate support of the Blunt Amendment, very important amendment which we'll be voting on as an entire U.S. Senate at 11 a.m. this morning. The Blunt Amendment is an absolutely necessary measure to fix what is a very egregious overstepping of the bounds of government in terms of the newly articulated Obamacare mandate on religion. As we all know through the debate and discussion of the last several weeks, the Obama administration has made it clear that everyone, including persons of faith, including religious institutions, are not only going to be forced to buy a product in the marketplace, and many of us think that itself is unprecedented and unconstitutional, but it gets worse because they will be forced to buy a product in the marketplace that violates their conscience, that violates their core beliefs. Catholics, many other Christians, many people of faith do not believe in certain activity and treatment that is mandated now to be covered by this mandatory insurance. And that is crossing a line that we have never before crossed in this country in terms of government power, government mandates, and government intrusion into the conscience of others, into the free exercise of religion. We absolutely need to fix this. Mr. President, this is a fundamental conscience issue. This is a freedom of religion issue, and that's exactly why it's so important. And let me also clarify, Mr. President, this isn't merely about contraception. Folks on the other side of the debate and most of the media constantly puts it merely in those terms. Well, first of all, those measures in and of themselves violate the conscience of many Americans. But secondly, it's not just about that, it's about abortion. It's about abortion-inducing drugs like Plan B. It's about sterilization. Now, clearly, these measures, clearly the government mandating Americans to buy, to pay for, to subsidize these measures violate the conscience of tens and tens of millions of Americans. And that's why we must act, hopefully today, starting today, by passing the Blunt Amendment. Now, Mr. President, the arguments made on the other side, when you look at them carefully, just don't hold water. First of all, there's President Obama's so-called accommodation, so-called compromise, which isn't an accommodation and isn't a meaningful compromise at all. What did he say? He said, okay, we're not going to make Americans, persons of faith, religious institutions, buy coverage that they have moral qualms with. We're merely going to make the insurance provider provide that coverage whether the customer wants it or not. Well, Mr. President, that is a completely superficial, completely meaningless word game. The insurer is providing this. How? What payment is supporting it? The only payment the insurer is getting is from the customer who objects to the coverage. So who's supporting it? Who's paying for it? Clearly, this is just a word game. If it weren't clear enough for the typical person or institution involved, what about institutions, and there are many of them, which are self-insured? What about, say, the University of Notre Dame? Catholic university, Catholic institution. It doesn't go to an insurance company to buy insurance. It's self-insured. So that word game doesn't even work on the surface there. And those cases number in the hundreds or thousands around the country. And that is a clear example of how that so-called compromise or accommodation is merely a sleight of hand and a word game. Another argument which the other side has made in this debate, Mr. President, is that somehow correcting this situation through the Blunt Amendment or through similar measures will shut down access to these services. That's just patently not true. These services, these medicines, and other treatments are widely available in every community across the country at little cost or no cost for folks who can't afford it. And that's not going to change. It's absolutely not necessary to tear away religious liberty, violate conscience rights of millions of Americans with that argument in mind. It just isn't true. That's why, Mr. President, respected religious leaders like Cardinal Designate Timothy Nolan, President of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, have argued strenuously, passionately against this mandate. Cardinal Designate Nolan has said, quote, "Never before has the federal government forced individuals and organizations to go out into the marketplace and buy a product that violates their conscience. This shouldn't happen in a land where free exercise of religion ranks first in the Bill of Rights," close quote. And so, Mr. President, that's what it comes down to. Free exercise of religion, fundamental conscience protection. The first amendment to the Constitution, the first item in the Bill of Rights. It doesn't get much headier or more significant than that. And that is what this is all about. And again, it's all about, yes, contraception, but abortion, abortion-inducing pills like Plan B, and sterilization. Mr. President, please assure me that the free exercise of religion is not now a partisan issue. Please assure me that we're going to correct this situation and not allow this egregious overstepping of the bounds of the power of government. We must act to stop this grave injustice. And I hope we start that process in a very serious way today by voting positively by passing the Blunt Amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.